If you're at a point of your life where you are earning more income than you ever thought that you would, define your success. What are you working for? Why are you working? Welcome to Wealth in Progress, the weekly podcast for professionals in their 30s and 40s trying to build wealth while juggling careers, family, rising expenses, and the occasional panic after scrolling social media for 5 minutes. I'm PJ, founder of Wealth and Plan, a virtual financial planning practice serving clients nationwide. If you want to learn more or start a conversation, head over to wealthandplan.com. We are currently accepting new clients and would love to get to know you. Here is this week's episode. What's going on, everybody? This is PJ with Wealth and Plan. Welcome to the second episode of Wealth in Progress, a weekly podcast where we make 15-minute videos and cover various financial planning topics. This week, I want to talk about the time of our lives where we make more money than we ever thought that we would, and what happens next. Now that we've got to this place that we always wanted to be at, where do we go from here? Because the issues that we normally had before are possibly now covered by the additional income. Maybe previously we were worrying about things such as paying our bills, maybe paying down our credit card at the end of the month, really just surviving and making it to the next month. Those were our main worries whenever we make sort of our first income right out of college. But now we're in this place where maybe we're making six figures, maybe we're making way above that, whatever the phase of your life that you're in. I want to talk about what happens with the new issues that come up in our lives. First thing that I wanted to cover is with additional income, we are presented additional opportunities. Whenever we were making less money early in our lives, our initial instinct was survival. We did not have that extra room to breathe. Now, if you're listening to this conversation, if you relate to what I'm talking about, you might be in that position where you do have a little bit of room to breathe. So how do we optimize that surplus? And before we even go there, let's talk about what a surplus even is in our cash flow. Surplus is income. So whatever comes into the household, whether it's on a biweekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis, however your income structure is set up, income is anything that comes in. And then surplus is everything that is left over after all the outgoing cash flows, such as maybe a mortgage payment or rent, car payment, any other liabilities, living expenses such as eating out, entertainment, all the fun stuff that we spend our money on. After we've taken care of all those expenses, what is left in our household is the surplus. Pretty straightforward. So then our typical human instinct for majority of us is to take that surplus and do something with it. Most of the time, that is spend it. That is where lifestyle creep kicks in. So we take our surplus and we feel that we've worked so hard in our lives that we now deserve a bigger house, maybe a second house, a fancier car. And I know those are extreme examples. Sometimes we're not moving, we're not buying a new car. Maybe sometimes it's, we stop thinking about money. So we tack on an additional subscription. We tack on maybe fancier clothes that we go out and buy, or maybe we start taking more vacations. So sometimes the examples aren't as extreme as buying this fancy house. But the moral of the story is we just naturally end up spending more whenever we make more. And money, it's just a tool for life. Money is not life. It's just there to support the life that we want to live. So whenever we have that surplus, it is very common for lifestyle to just eat that right up. And then we become a high earner that feels like we're in the exact same situation that we were 10 years ago when maybe we were making half that. So how do we avoid that situation in our lives? Because you do not, or if you're listening to this, most likely you feel like you're there. Very common. One thing that I always emphasize with our clients is we need to define, what does success look like in your life? And that is different for every single person out there. And I'm not talking, what does success look like based on what social media tells us it's supposed to look like. I'm not talking, what does success look like based on the point of view of our neighbor or a friend. What does success look like for you as an individual? Success could mean many different things. For some people, success is being able to go to the grocery store and swipe the card and not even look at the credit card statement. Financial freedom. That could be one type of success. For some people, success is retiring early. Maybe you had parents that worked for a long time and you saw what they had to go through. So for you, success is retiring early. Maybe success for you is taking care of others, taking care of your kids or family members in their older years, whatever success looks like for you. The first thing in this exercise is identifying that success, because we have to have a target. As I mentioned earlier, because we're using money as a tool, we have to know, why are we doing this? What is our why? Why are we working? I've seen so many scenarios in my career where we're talking to an older folk and their goal is retirement, call it age 65. And let's say, and again, this is just an example, this person is 55, right? And so it's an open-ended conversation where we're talking about retiring because that's the ultimate goal for this individual. And we try to help them realize their success and their goals. And their success is to make X amount of dollars in retirement. Then we go through this financial planning exercise. We look at inflows, we look at what assets they have, what liabilities they have, and we determine that our success is here today. Retirement, based on what you've told us, can happen today. Maybe it could have happened 5, 10 years ago. But then something kicks in, and most people say, well, I'm not ready to retire. What that tells me as a financial planner is that retirement then is not your goal. It's not your success. It's maybe part of it. It's part of the ultimate success. But if you are at a point of your life where you are ready to retire, or sorry, let me rephrase that. If you are at a point in your life where you worked so hard to retire and make a certain number of income in retirement, but you are not ready to retire after we tell you the data supports that you can do that today, then that is not your ultimate version of success. There's something else to it. And this is not me saying stop working altogether. If that is what brings you joy, there's plenty of people out there that they just don't want to slow down. And there's so many studies out there, right, that we need to keep occupying our brains in retirement. So I'm not saying if you're in a position where you know that you can retire financially and you choose to work for whatever reason, again, totally fine. Not what we're talking about here. We're simply talking about from a numbers perspective. There has to be something else in your life that's keeping you from retiring now. Maybe that's as simple as accumulating as much money, as much wealth as possible to leave it to your heirs, your kids, your grandkids. And that's okay. That's a very viable version of success. But that version of success changes our strategy. Because now we went from doing everything that it takes, in this example, to retire at age 65, but now we've decided that our goal is to flip a switch and accumulate as much as we can. Whether that means, working until retirement while you can retire today, great. So really where I'm going with this is if you're at a point of your life where you are earning more income than you ever thought that you would, define your success. What are you working for? Why are you working? Whenever you have the answer to that, it becomes a whole lot easier to make sure that that surplus or the difference between what comes in minus what goes out, that difference, how do we optimize it in the best way possible? I will also mention one other thing that comes with making more money than you've ever made before in your life. And that is the pressure to continue making that money. That is one of those financial traps that a lot of people don't think about or don't talk about, but there is a certain pressure that comes with a higher income. Whenever we make more money, we have a feeling of maintaining a certain lifestyle. We get used to it. We get used to the different comforts in our lives. So there's that pressure to keep that. There's also sometimes the pressure to keep advancing, right? Maybe when we were younger or out of college, we said that our goal in life was to make $100,000. And now we're making $100,000 and we feel like we have more left in the tank. So we continue chasing more, the pressure to keep up. And another type of pressure would be the guilt that comes with success, right? Sometimes we might just feel very lucky to have gotten to where we are, and guilt kicks in and we start to ask, why me? In a good way. We're blessed. But that overall pressure is something that can add additional stress in your life if you don't know what you're working for, if you don't know what you're advancing towards, if you're feeling like your high income is due to luck. How do we minimize that pressure? And this is a part of financial planning that is more so an open-ended conversation and less so a let's look at the balance sheet, let's look at your cash flows, let's determine, the math of lowering this pressure. This becomes more of a personal lifestyle decision of how do we minimize that pressure? How do we identify what's important to us the most? So to wrap this all up, if you are in a position where you are making more money than you ever thought that you would, first of all, congratulations. That is a big accomplishment and you deserve a pat on the back. I know it's very hard to get caught up in the rat race and just keep going. And it's hard sometimes to take a step back and admire our accomplishments. If you are in that position of your life, congratulations. You deserve it. You deserve to celebrate it. Take some time to appreciate your progress and ensure that you have alignment with your priorities. If you don't know what your priorities are, if you've been so busy to get to where you are right now, and maybe if you are continuing to get to a new place now that you're here, ensure that you are aware of your priorities, that you are aware of what your success is, because all that will allow you to optimize the time and effort that you're putting in today to accumulate wealth into future financial goals in your life. If you've got to this point, thank you very much for watching. As always, this will be posted to our YouTube channel first, so I would really appreciate it if you could click subscribe, because when you subscribe, our channel becomes more visible to others, and we will also be posting our podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you don't want to watch the video version. If you are a very busy person that is on the go all the time and just want to watch the highlights, then we do post highlights on our LinkedIn and Instagram. So feel free to connect with us or follow us on Instagram. You can also reach us via our social media if you ever have any questions. This is a weekly podcast, so we'll have another episode next week. And As always, with all of my videos and podcasts, they are all for educational purposes only. They are not investment advice. Everyone's situation is a little different, so always talk to a financial professional before you make any decisions. Thanks, guys, and I will see you all next week.